So today, we'll be walking through my entire toolbox. I built this thing out about a year ago now, so I've had plenty of time to wrench out of it and get super well acquainted with everything inside. So let's take a look. Before we go layer by layer, the actual box is a Pelican 1510 with pre-cut inserts that I actually just bought from Amazon. To outline the tools, I use a long-nosed permanent marker, and then I cut the foam with an electric needle. The system worked well, but it definitely smelled super toxic, and I wore a respirator the entire time. Starting things off with layer 1, with this layer being on the top, it has the most used tools, such as the digital pressure gauge, shock pump, and all the Allen keys. Other notable mentions include the tire levers, valve core remover, and a T25. After a year with this box, one tool that made it onto the prestigious top layer that never gets used is this Birdman rotor alignment tool. While a great in concept, I just always set up my brakes by eye, and this thing has never been pulled out of the toolbox, probably until right now. In contrast to the rotor alignment tool, the tape measure, screwdrivers, wire cutters, spoke wrench, and the quick link tool are all things that get used on a regular basis, and I'm excited that I put them on the top layer. All in all, despite a few things that I'd change, I'm really happy with how this layer turned out, and it's definitely the workhorse of the group. So let's move on to layer 2. Heading into layer 2, we've got the torque wrench, the Nitpex pliers, and a second set of Allen keys as the main highlights. Also on this layer, we've got the Park Tool chain breaker, Shimano BB tool, Shimano chainring tool, Fox air cap socket, cassette pliers, and a rotor truing tool. With that said, you'll notice throughout my toolbox that I really only have the necessary tools to work on my bikes, and thus there's a lot of Shimano specific bits in here. Before moving on from this layer, I want to give a shout out to the torque wrench here. This is the first torque wrench that I've ever owned. It was super expensive, but I'm glad I bought it. And I have to say that I think my frame bearings are a lot happier with me now, because previously I would just absolutely crank on my frame bolts. So yeah, good investment. For layer 3, we start to get into some of the lesser used tools, such as the digital caliper, crown race remover, cable housing cutter, and the hammer. Although many of these tools don't come out as often as others, this layer does have some of my favorite tools, such as the Abbey DU bushing tool, the Abbey hanger alignment gauge, and my favorite of all, the dental pick. An interesting tool on this layer, which I hadn't seen from any other mechanics, was this Birdman headset cup and bottom bracket removal tool. It's a super great idea. It expands from 1 1/8 to 1 1/2, which is awesome because all the competing products would never be able to fit in the toolbox, so you'd just be left punching out your headset cups or bottom brackets. And while it's a super awesome idea, I found that at the 1 1/2 inch size, it's actually not expanding large enough to hit out that size of a headset cup. So good idea, just doesn't quite work perfectly. The last tools on this layer are just a few wrenches here. We got a 15 mil, which is great for popping out seals on a fork, and an 8 mil, which is great when you're doing your brakes. And then we've got this tool from Feedback, which has a Shimano BB tool on one end, and then the tool to tighten down a cassette on the other, which is super handy. So that's layer 3, and now let's finish things off here with layer 4. Layer 4 features foam that's double the height of all the other layers, so this is a perfect home for all the bigger tools. On this layer, we've got the bleed kit box, we've got a crown race setter, a star nut setter, and a pipe cutter. That said, my favorite tools on this layer are definitely the grease gun, the deburring tool, my bearing press, and the Park Tool brake hose cutter. After about a year of this box now, I've been super happy with it. The tools are laid out in a way that works super well for me, and it keeps my bikes running sweet. If you have any questions regarding the toolbox or anything bike maintenance or setup related, please feel free to drop a comment below and I'll definitely get back to you. And then lastly, if you want to hear a bit more about my philosophy on why I think a toolbox is important for mountain biking, please check out the video on the screen right now, and thanks for watching. Peace.